the slow scroll down of the reveal.
Oh yeah, okay, go up. There we go.
We just
Dramatic pause on the picture.
I remember this.
Oh, Eric July.
Warner Brothers, known for making spectacular decisions. When things like the Snyderverse start, they just stick with it all the way through. You know, they don't piss off their biggest director when they put all their movies on their streaming service and tell Nolan to fuck off. You know, really just good decisions. Hiring a CEO that was totally not caught for plagiarism and sued successfully. And
dropping the HBO from their name.
Turning it to Max.
When they dropped HBO from HBO Max and just turned it into Max, I get it. They were like, well, we don't want to alienate and make people think it's just like adult kind of programming or like mature oriented programming. But fuck, HBO has some gravitas to it. It's got a name.
Yes.
Like it's got a brand. Yeah. And the idea that you drop that to make it just Max, I think it was one of the dumber things.
Go look at how really old stupid. HBO is. Home box office is old.
84?
More. Go back further.
Is 70s?
Yes.
Holy crap.
It's old. It's been around forever. And Max is where Skinamax. It was called Skinamax for a reason. It was more adult than HBO. They also decided to reboot the DC universe technically for the third time within a decade, not really tell anybody about it, and then release 6 flops in a row. I mean, geniuses here we're talking about. And they canceled Batgirl. And Batgirl's still the most profitable out of all of them because of the tax write-off. So really smart company. So when David Zaslav, he's like, man, we got some good properties. We're going to turn things around. We're going to do some more Lord of the Rings. We're going to do some more Harry Potter. We're going to get DC straight. Well, I think we got a pretty good idea just in the last month how that turnaround's going to go. And I won't even get into War of the Rohirrim right now. We're talking about the possible casting of Severus Snape, arguably top 3 iconic character from the, especially top 2 for adults.
Absolutely.
For adults. Mm-hmm. It would go Harry, Dumbledore, Snape. And it's pretty important casting. Like this is, even though it's a rumor, aside from the show being announced, this is your first major news of what could potentially be, if done correctly, if adapted faithfully, the biggest scripted television show on the planet, period.
Of all time. It's hitting at the perfect time. The kids that grew up with it are now in their 30s. There's new kids that are getting into the books. This is the perfect time to release a prestige level, accurate to the books TV show. And the first thing that comes out is this.
Papa Esiadu?
Esiadu.
Hey, I got closer.
Sounds like a Star Wars character.
I had to play Severus Snape on HBO's Harry Potter TV show exclusive. The British I May Destroy You. Well, that's prophetic. Actor is being eyed for a fan favorite role in the eagerly anticipated fantasy series.
I remember this guy from the TV show The Lazarus Project, which is about time travel. The show itself was all right, but it did start with the lines, "The far right is rebelling in the streets of London." And I'm like, okay, I know what this series is going to be.
Oh, boy.
Obviously, it's not he was just an actor in the series, but we know the kind of shows that he's been in before.
From what I understand, he's done a lot of theater stuff as well.
He's Shakespeare
as a couple of shows.
Classically trained. Huh?
But,
classically trained.
You know, he could be a great actor. Unfortunately, he doesn't look like Severus Snape.
No, Snape would have been one of the last characters I thought they would race swap because Alan Rickman just made that character really iconic. I would have thought there were so many other characters that they would have tried to race swap before Severus, but this is...
Well, we haven't got the full cast.
It's a rumor. Yeah, we don't yet know, so...
So the only other legitimate report that's been out there that people feel is legitimate is Mark Rylance as Dumbledore.
Yes.
That came out a couple of weeks ago that he was in discussions. This one's being reported now. It's not a casting announcement. It's not official, but this is also not fucking Daniel Rickman says some random vague thing or My Time to Shine Hello says some random vague thing. This is the Hollywood Reporter.
Who exists to be a mouthpiece for the studios, and the studios use the Hollywood Reporter and Variety to leak rumors sometimes, to run it up the flagpole to see who salutes. Like the Hollywood Reporter is wrong sometimes, though. They are. They have been in the past, but not often. As Ryan said, this isn't some rando scooper, right? So And considering we're still in current times, it's very believable. I don't think anybody doubts this.
Nope.
The biggest problem, aside from, let's just go to the description. I'll go off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. Thin, hook-nosed, long, greasy hair that it goes around shoulder length that drapes his face like a curtain. A sallow skin, which is like sickly white, jaundice, sometimes browning, which I'm sure they ran this.
Browning.
Yeah,
right. He's described as pale about a dozen times. He's described as pallid or sallow-looking skin several times. At one point, when he's mad or upset about something, his skin is described as the color of sour milk. And no, Chrissy, it's not chocolate milk.
Good.
And then the last real description we have of his face is when he's having his final conversation with Voldemort, before Voldemort, tries to kill him. And it's described as his face was marble white, right? Oh. There's no getting away from that. He's fucking white.
There's black marble.
Unless he puts on white face.
The description that gets mentioned the most is his straight, greasy hair. Like, that gets mentioned multiple times.
Not nappy? They don't at all say.
No, straight and greasy. And if you go back up to the picture, I forgot. Somebody brought this up on Twitter. It was a good point, but I can't remember who, so forgive me. Listen, I'm a dude, but too good looking to play Snape. No matter what color that is too good.
Looks like a model.
It looks like thirst trap Snape.
That's like almost the argument with Alan Rickman. Is Alan Rickman does have a nose that looks more akin to like what Severus would, but like Alan Rickman's almost not ugly enough to really play Snape. But he truly embodied the rest of the character. He did have the general look for Snape, and obviously gave a great performance. To play Snape, you shouldn't look like you just walked out of a magazine for Africa GQ or something. Right? Like that makes zero sense at all. Some of the details that came out yesterday, because they did have a discussion about this, including where they're going to be filming, how many people they auditioned for the Golden Trio. One of the things they said is they want to stay canonically true to the ages of the characters. So we want to make sure that, the Marauders and Snape at this point would have been 31 when you start this series.
Yep.
You want to be canonically accurate when it comes to that, but not how they fucking look.
Arguably, Ryan, in the movies, like, all the adults are too old, except for
they're all way too old. Yeah,
and McGonagall, like all the Marauders are too old. Like
100%. And I think you could make some arguments where, like, Lupin, it's okay if he looks older than he actually is because of his health, and maybe Sirius because he's been in prison and stuff. But those characters should have been in their mid-30s for basically the majority of the books.
This is why fans of the book and of the franchise wanted to see a book accurate version of Harry Potter, because the movies are, as much as people love them, I love some of them progressively less and less as much as I watch them. They were not close to the book in many aspects. At best.
But the reason I'm convinced, despite the fact that they do very much turn into their own interpretations and a different style as you go later on in the series, those first two, Christopher Columbus, on those first two, he set the stage, and the reason these were smash hits was because they are super close to the fucking book. Not only in the plot, but also with the way they built out the world, what it looked like, what the characters look like, what the characters sound like, the things the characters say. Most of it is pulled right from the book for the first two books, which got people very much invested and interested in the world. And that is the same approach you have to have. Do I think that anyone's going to be able to pull off what Alan Rickman did to Snape?
No.
I don't know. He was fantastic. But you have, if you want to do it, you have to get as close to the book as you fucking can. I'm not saying people would forget about Alan Rickman, but in a lot of ways, movie Snape is not portrayed right. And by that, what I mean is he's not shown to be nearly as cruel or as much of a fucking asshole as he in reality is in the books. Because you don't have that much time, right? You can't see all these scenes. You can't see all the scenes when he's in detention with Harry and is like brutalizing him about the memories of his father and Sirius, and he's torturing these children. Or Hermione has a jinx that makes her buck teeth grow past her chin, and Snape says, "I see no difference." Right? This is the opportunity to do it the right way.
It is, and if you want to differentiate yourself from the movies, which have such iconic casting, is you adapt the books faithfully. That would make you much different than the movies. And you would, by faithfully means casting everybody correctly in a book series that's already diverse.
I think the point with any of this is the idea that it's accepted by going, oh, well, they were diverse in the first place. You're kind of accepting that that's a good thing. And it's at best irrelevant. At worst, you're crowbarring in it, and then you will destroy whatever it was because you're changing it. The very idea that needs to be brought up in the first place is kind of horrific.
If Seattle lands the role, it will also be an example of HBO following through on its promise the series to have a diverse cast. I don't really remember them promising that.
No.
But the films were sometimes criticized for having an entirely white core cast and will presumably lead to a rather fresh take on the character. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fresh as fuck.
Fresh Prince.
The book is diverse.
The book isn't diverse. The book is appropriately representative of 1991 UK, right?
Arguably more diverse than 90s UK actually was.
It would have been.
Of the 200 or so characters that we could probably name in the Harry Potter series, right? You can easily list off 4 or 5 characters that are black, right? You have a handful of Indian characters. You have one Asian character. Guess what? In 1991 in the UK, 95% of the population was white. I think 2.5% Indian, another like 2% black, and like 0.3% Chinese. What's up, Cho Chang? Like they are perfectly representative of the time period in which they existed in the UK. And that's what this story is. This is a British fucking story. This is a story that takes place in the UK. That's what it is, and it's what it should remain.
Same thing of complaining that Mr. Bean is not diverse.
Well, even in that, they were generally located around like London, Manchester, Birmingham. And so depending, I don't know where Harry Potter is set, but depending on which location it was in the UK, that would have been massively overrepresented.
Everyone who's a wizard in the entire UK goes to Hogwarts. Like that is the school of witchcraft and wizardry for witchcraft and wizardry for the UK. So it doesn't matter where you're from.
But let's just get back to this. The films were sometimes criticized for having an entirely white core cast. The fact that you're still printing this or whatever, digitally putting this on your fucking rag and saying that, thank you for admitting that equity, equality, diversity just means less white. That's all it means. Yeah. Which is not, and like that, it's very much a racist statement wherever it comes from. And the thing, you're still open about this shit. And now the series is going to get it from both sides. Because do you think if they do this really diverse cast, that's going to protect any of them from the people who are going to attack J.K. Rowling and her views for being directly involved? You crazy. You know, to HBO's credit, a couple of weeks ago said, no, we're going to back J.K. Good.
When you say that, let's remember J.K. is in charge of this. She's not in charge of the show, but she's heavily involved. Very involved in the show. If this
happens,
so
she signed off on it.
Yeah, I believe that she signed off on all the casting of the original movies.
The original.
To the point where she literally went, no Americans. It was like, except for one guy or something.
There shouldn't be any Americans because it's a very British show. I want it to stay that way. That's how it should be.
No,
and I want black British I want black British people to play the black British characters.
Dean Thomas. Kingsley Shacklebolt.
Well, do you know the Esiadu would be a good Kingsley Shacklebolt?
Yeah.
And Kingsley's a fucking cool character.
He's cool as shit.
He doesn't really get introduced until the last half of the series, and it's not like he's a star character or anything, but he's a cool, important character. A lot of his parts got cut out of the movies because he just didn't have time for that.
Yep.
Yep. In a statement regarding Esiadu's casting, HBO said, "We appreciate that such high-profile series will draw a lot of rumor and speculation. As we make our way through pre-production, we will only confirm details as we finalize deals."
I love the idea that they may have leaked this to Hollywood Reporter, and then they turned around and went, and what's your official sentence that we need to put in?
Yeah, the series is described as a faithful adaptation of the beloved Harry Potter book series by author and executive producer J.K. Rowling. This is right after they said, oh, well, maybe this guy will bring a fresh modern take to Snape. Why do we need a fresh take on Snape?
We don't.
We need an accurate take on Snape.
Yes.
That would set you up for more success.
If every single actor who they cast was accurate to the books and performed well, like you're talking about the biggest series of all time, potentially.
Yeah,
let's just cast Seamus Finnegan as a fat black suburban mom from New Jersey. How about that? You know, who cares? That doesn't have any bearing on the accuracy of the fucking show.
Mm-hmm. I could 100% see in modern times, if you got the author on board, reprinting old versions of the books with descriptions of the new cast. If they really wanted to update things for a modern audience, I think that would eventually be where you go. So they changed the old work to match the new future.
I wouldn't put it past Rowling to do that. If she's the one who is either signing off on it or perhaps wanting to update her own material, yeah, that's possible.
Everyone's going to go back, of course, to 10 years ago, Cursed Child, the Hermione shit. And it's important to note that J.K. Rowling signed off on them making the Cursed Child. And then when a Black Hermione got cast to star in the theater production, she didn't say Hermione's black. She said, well, you know, I suppose Hermione could be black. I never specifically said she was white, even though you actually did in the books. Just through things like, yes, did Hermione's face go pale? Yes. Did she have a pale white face in this? Yes. But also things like when she gets embarrassed, she turns pink because she's blushing, right? There are things you can read between the lines of some of the way these characters are described that, guess what? The white characters in something that's written in the 90s, that's set in 90s UK, they're not going to tell you every time they introduce somebody, oh, Hermione was a white girl, because it's assumed, because 95% of the population is white. When you go by all these other descriptions of them, you can tell. Fucking Kingsley Shacklebolt, tall, black, bald-headed. Like, those are the descriptions. Now, Dean Thomas was not described in Philosopher's Stone, but he was described as black in the American editions for Sorcerer's Stone. It was an editor had cut part of it out for something, but he was described in those first books as well.
Because of the whole transgender controversies that she gets involved with, sometimes it's easy to forget that she is a leftist lunatic, except on transgender ideology, except on that. But
she's a feminist.
She still is. She's still a TERF.
That's the word they use
a leftist weirdo, and she will sign off on all that woke shit with no problem on her conscience at all.
Someone in the chat brought up a good point about the game, Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, that's set at a very old time in British history, and yet it's incredibly diverse, like even more diverse than the movie.
And that bartender, yo.
How do you think that Adam Driver feels like everyone's saying, you're ugly enough to be Snape?
He knows.
He's not British enough, though.
Yeah.
So.
That's right.
In principle, would he like look the part? Yeah, he would. I think he would give a great performance, but I think they should stick to British actors.
Ryan, your tweet made me laugh where you said that, you know, if they make Snape black, what are they going to do with what James Potter when he used to tease Snape? Is that going to be because of racism?
Yeah.
Sirius were actually just fucking racists when they were bullied.
We'll find out. But this, again, is just rumor. It is not confirmed, and we will see what happens. What did it say here? How many kids tried out? You don't have to pull up the article.
34,000. 32.
32.
What?
32,000 auditions for Ron, Harry, and Hermione.
How do you process
Also
that?
did reveal, and I'm interested to know how you feel about this, Gary. They're going to be filming back on the sets for the originals.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow.
I think that's the perfect thing
That's
for them.
brilliant. Yeah, why not? I mean, they're there. I'm all for it. I thought the look of the movies was great. A lot of the design, a lot of the costumes. We'll just see about this casting.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.